Welcome to the Painted in Color podcast. I'm your co-host, Mia Araujo, and I'm joined today with Eric Wilkerson, our other co-host here. And we're actually doing a short episode today, just talking about AI art, as I'm sure a lot of you have seen coming up on your timelines. A lot of people sort of, experimenting with these sort of AI programs and apps that basically generate images, and we'll get into what that's all about if you've never heard of it. But it's been a pretty hot topic in the art community lately, just in terms of what impact it'll have on our industry, on the quality or the value of our work and that sort of stuff. So we're just going to have a short conversation about it. And let's just jump right into it.
The one thing I don't have a, as they say, I don't have a horse in this race. I don't do it. I don't mess around with that. I like digital painting and painting the old-fashioned way, struggling through it.
You enjoy the struggle.
having somebody. Yeah, I enjoy the struggle. I don't want a computer to do it for me. But there's always change in the industry. Okay, so when I started out, or when a lot of people started out in art school, they just needed to understand how to paint and draw. They needed to understand their fundamentals. They needed to understand value and color and all that stuff. But then Photoshop came into being, and then everybody needed to understand all of their fundamentals and traditional painting techniques. And they also needed to know how to do stuff digitally and hopefully mimic what they could do traditionally in a digital realm. Then photo collage came in and wiped out whole markets of illustration that were the bread and butter for a lot of my instructors that were painting romance covers and, early those babysitter club kind of middle grade YA book covers with the teenage kids and the Jordache jeans and all that stuff. But that stuff got wiped out by photography, by photo collage. Why pay somebody to spend 2 weeks doing painting, oil painting, a book cover, when you could just do a photo shoot, grab that file, remove the background from the photo shoot, slap in something, lasso tool in, the characters, and add some filter and call it a day. And maybe spend a day and
Same
you
with
still get right, and you get paid the exact same amount of money as somebody that was going to spend 2 weeks doing an oil painting. Right. So here we are again. The industry is constantly evolving, and people feel like frantic about, depending on what industry you're in, feel frantic about, we must learn this now, we must stay ahead of the wave, right? But
you don't feel that way. No.
I don't. I mean, I feel like at some point I'm gonna have to know it. So I mean, if you're not, I don't have an example of this to call up on my screen, but we can edit it in later to show you what we're talking about. But there are apps. I think one of them is called Disco Diffusion or something like that, and there's another one called Mid Journey. But there are these apps where you can put in a prompt, a keyword prompt. You could say John Singer Sargent, cyberpunk, flowers, sunsets, dragons, whatever you want to put in there. You could put in the keyword could be the name of your favorite sci-fi illustrator or whatever. Then it's just going to collage all of that information, and it's going to pull from all over the internet, whether those images are public domain or copyrighted images with the watermark of Getty Photos or something slapped right on that image, and you could still probably barely see it in the final collaged image, but it'll be there.
Or like a signature. I've seen some that have the artist signature.
Or somebody's signature. So it's opened up a whole gray area of who owns the rights to stuff, if you are pulling liberally from the internet, if this app can pull liberally from the internet without any kind of restrictions, and who owns that, right? Who owns the, I mean, I'm interested to see like if there would be potential lawsuits if somebody recognizes, right, their work. And, you know, but I mean, I've seen recently I've seen an artist get sued for taking a high profile, very popular photograph, flipping it, and just doing like, come on, man.
A one-to-one painting of it.
A
Yeah.
one-to-one painting. Like that's lazy.
And trying to pass us off as inspiration, you know, and it's just like everything about it was copied.
I don't understand people, but they're just this new change for the industry.
Like it's more, I think right now it's kind of like more useful for like the conceptual stage. So like the blue sky period. So I could see like companies that are trying to come up with, you know, concepts for films and things like that, using this to sort of streamline that process up front and not have to pay artists maybe for as much time to generate this kind of visual imagery, you know.
Right.
But over time it'll take over more stuff, you know.
Exactly. And I've talked to people that I work with and other concept artists, and we were all in a kind of an agreement that these new apps are best used by people that understand what they're doing, that understand how to paint. Right. And they can see what to do next. They have experience in the industry. So it's something that as a junior artist, if you were to try to, or you're new to the industry, or you're coming into trying to be a concept artist or some kind of sci-fi fantasy illustrator, and you're just using this to create an asset, and then you're just dabbling and touching it up, it's painfully obvious. Yeah. Right? Versus somebody that collages something together, they've got 20, 30 years experience, and they know what they're doing, and they know what they want to get. And they can see that blob of color and shapes and say, okay, well, I know the prompts that I put in here, and this would be cool as just a painting as it is right now, but I'm going to make this a sci-fi hangar bay now, right? Only thing is that the entire palette is here for me. So now I can dive in and do what I need to do. That's experience. Yeah. And I've also talked to people that are concerned that it would mean companies eventually downsizing their concept art, you know, department. Mm-hmm. Why do you like need a retoucher? Mm-hmm. Literally, like you just need a retoucher. You need somebody to put in the prompts, you know, hit the render button and touch up some stuff. Correct one. Yeah, exactly. Right. And how many of those people do you need? Mm-hmm. Right. So there, but I just know that there are some things change, some things that come into being, change the industry forever, and other things just become another asset, just become another way of working. Absolutely. That don't have as big of a impact as people thought it was going to. Yeah. And I think when digital painting first came out, you know, a lot of people like me that did not do digital for years, I wasn't intimidated by it in the sense that I still wanted to paint traditionally. So it didn't stop me from doing that. Yeah, it made it harder for me to keep up with things like freelance that does need a higher, you know, turnaround rate and stuff like that. But it's like, I still found my way to make my stuff work, you know, and over time learned those tools and incorporated into my process. I guess it's like, I just would caution people to not freak out, because I know we kind of started in just talking about like what it could do, how it could disrupt the industry, but I don't see it as any more disruptive than digital tools, you know, or like the fact that everyone has a really high-tech camera on their phone. You would think that photographers would be obsolete then, but professional photographers are still in demand because they still know how to, like what you said, they have the design experience, they know how to make an image look right. And not everyone with a great camera on their phone is a photographer, you know. Right. You still have to know what you're doing to make a good image. So I think that for concept art, I think it's having more of a ripple effect of people freaking out,
Mm.
especially students, like thinking, okay, well, on top of learning the fundamentals, on top of learning how to digitally paint, on top of having to learn ZBrush and Blender and all these other apps, now I've got to learn this in order to stay competitive in a market where getting the job is like winning the lottery, literally, depending on what studio you're trying to apply to.
Yeah.
But
But
I
there's
can't
not as
remember
big a
what.
learning curve, right? Like it's just like, I mean, I from what I haven't done it myself yet, but my
Yeah,
friends that have, it's like it's almost like becoming more and more specific with the prompts you use is what makes a better image. And like you said, refreshing, if you refresh the search every time with the same prompts, it will get a better and better image. And so it's
yeah,
just a matter of curating the right image. I guess I could see the barrier to entry for students feeling like really intimidating is that they don't have all those skills yet to compete with this thing that's already making an image at the press of a button. And so
right.
it could seem like, why do I have to spend all these years learning this thing that a computer knows how to do? But again, it's for what we were talking about earlier, that it's like having those skills yourself. Like just because you have a digital paintbrush doesn't mean you don't have to know how to mix paint, or maybe some people do like skip that step, but knowing that adds to the knowledge, it adds to the experience of painting digitally, if that makes sense.
Right.
Um,
And actually seen students get scared and they say, "Oh crap, this app did in a fraction of the time stuff that I don't even know how to do."
mhm.
Like I don't even know how to do yet. Just basically just digital painting. I don't, like they don't understand color theory and all these other things. So um, it really concern them. But concept art also has a sameness to it right now. Like a
Mhm.
lot of the environment concept artists are already collaging
Mhm.
photos into their stuff.
Yeah, photo bashing.
Photo bashing, that's the word that they use. That's the cool kids call it photo bashing now. Um, they do a lot of that now, and so that everything has a sameness to it.
Mhm.
I'm 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 interested to see what more of the character design output looks like, because the character designs that I'm seeing coming out of these apps like Midjourney kind of also have a blobby sameness to it.
And weird stuff too.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't do
And
faces very well.
it doesn't. But that's, I just keep thinking about the jobs.
Yeah.
Does this make somebody's job, you know, obsolete? If the creative director could just sit there in his office and just, instead of telling somebody, here's what I want, I'm just going to type it in
Mhm.
and do it myself at a fraction of the time and save the company, thousands of dollars on human beings.
Yeah.
Or is it going to fade out? Is it a fad? We don't know. I mean, it's really one of it's really we're it's a fascinating time. It
Yeah.
really is, because we are right in the middle of seeing what effect this is going to have, and we probably won't know for another couple of years.
Yeah.
But if everybody's portfolio is all, AI created, I don't know. It just feels like what a waste of a art education.
I don't think everyone will do it. That's the thing. I think there'll always be people who resist doing that because they want to stand out or they want to do their own thing. And maybe
Yeah.
it'll be easier to stand out with your own stuff if you don't do that as well. But I think with every like wave of technology, there's been one of my teachers and I were talking about it recently, and he pointed out that there's always been like a reaction against it, where it's like people will go back like super traditional and like really ephemeral stuff that you can't possibly do with that.
Right.
So I just think that for people who want to be on the cutting edge of art, they'll chase that and feel like they have to do it. But that's the thing, it's not a race. So it's like for anybody that has anxiety about like, you're not competing with this AI thing, it's like you're just competing with yourself. And it's like, if you want to learn these things, that's one thing. If you don't, and the only reason why you're learning is to get hired, then yeah, maybe the way you go about things will be a little different. But I think at the end of the day, it's about what you want to do and how you want your art to look, and not about anything else. And just sort of pick and choose what helps you get there.
Yeah. I just know that as I've gotten older, I've kind of stepped back a lot from digital painting, because I realized last year when doing the children's book that I did, it takes so much more effort for me to mimic my oil paintings digitally than to just paint it.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's no drying time and all that stuff, but I'm trying to recreate how my hand moves with all these different custom brushes to get the effect that I could get with one brush, but
So
twisting my wrist a different way.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting. So I don't know. I feel like, yeah, you're right. There are going to be people that choose not to go down that road. Same way there are people that, they dabbled in the digital painting at one point when Photoshop and Painter were new, and all those other apps, and then decided, yeah, I'm gonna get the paper and the pencil out, or I'm just gonna stick with my paints. Especially when they realize that there's secondary markets for their work, right?
Yeah.
So I'm starting to see friends selling their art, selling their AI art, which is weird to
Really?
me.
Already?
Like you just typed in a prompt and
That's
you
weird.
lightly painted over it and you sold it already. Like
Yeah.
you literally did no work. So
Yeah, the ethical stuff here is really interesting because it's like I wouldn't call that your art. I would call it you curated it,
yeah.
But yeah, anybody passing it off as their art at this point, I would call that really sus. I don't know.
One of I was watching a friend of mine create a piece of AI art, and he put my name in there. He just typed in
Oh, really?
Eric Wilkerson sci-fi. The results were terrible. The results were, what was funny? The results were terrible, but the images were young adult illustrations of like kids, like blobs of kids in spacesuits.
Oh,
And the palette was dead on.
oh,
I was
wow.
like, oh crap.
Yeah.
This is it.
They're on to you.
The AI knows my colors, my color palette. Oh
Right.
crap. So like, I thought that was just me, but now the computer is on to me.
Yeah.
So
that is interesting though. That's something that I don't know if you specifically map out your palette from piece to piece or if it just kind of comes from, what the mood of the image is, but that's so weird that something that's intuitive for you is very much a numbers thing for an algorithm. I find that
oh
so
yeah.
interesting.
I've had that conversation with other illustrators, and every illustrator seems to have a go-to palette. Like if you look at their portfolio, like yours is blue. Like,
Yeah.
So mine is blue and purple and a little, neon orange. I don't hide.
Yeah.
I know it. But everybody's got their go-to palette, and it's what catches your eye from across a room. Like, that your favorite sci-fi artist or whoever, because they've got that neon phthalo green rim light on everything, and you go, oh, there it is. There's that new piece.
Yeah.
And the computer knows it too now. So, oh well.
But do you think one quick thing I wanted to ask about too is do you think that this is all definitely from the artist perspective, how we feel seeing this thing, but do you think that it'll have an impact on people who are not artists, how they value art, if they see this being generated quickly, if that will devalue art in their eyes?
I think it will devalue, honestly, because they don't pay, people that are new to the industry, concept artists, illustrators, they don't pay people coming into this industry enough as is for the hours and hours of effort that they put into their work. And if people outside of the industry that are aware of the fact that an AI program can do that work in a fraction of the time, why should they pay you $100? Or it probably makes it more reasonable for them to just pay you $100,
Mm-hmm.
right? Rather than, or they could totally drop the prices now, because it's like, well, why pay you $2,000 for this project if I know that you could just type in some prompts, or I'm going to type in the prompts for you from the brief that I've given you, send you the results and say, touch this up based on the brief, and I need it tomorrow, because it's literally not going to take you more time than, a 24-hour turnaround to do what I need now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not worth $2,000. That's maybe $400, maybe.
I wonder if that does happen, if more artists will be making their own stuff, because if working for other people doesn't even pay, what is the point,
Well, that's the thing. That's where is this gonna, how is this gonna turn out?
Right.
I mean, we don't know, but if I were money conscious, or like if I was the owner of a business and I was like really skeevy about it, didn't want to pay people, and you told me that there was an app that could do the work of a team of people in half the time, or a fraction of the time, and I only needed to hire one person and pay them like a base small minimum salary,
Yeah.
I'd do it.
Yeah. The only ones who wouldn't would be the ones that enjoy working with artists and enjoy that process, and that's part of the value
Right.
for them.
Right. So right now it's the AI is making blobby concept art photo out of various photos. It all looks like, I swear to you, the stuff all looks like Craig Mullins. Like, I don't know, it just feels like that. It all
It feels
feels
like very
like
surrealist though. Doesn't it have like surrealist kind of nightmare vibes too?
it
Like where
it does. And it has a Craig Mullins Sargent surrealist vibe to everything,
yeah.
with like, and they crank it, everything's got the saturation cranked up.
And contrast, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So
It's interesting.
but I know there's somebody out there whose portfolio already looked like that,
Right.
or like basically a ton of ArtStation already looked like that before the AI, and those people are like, oh crap. I had a whole YouTube video where I like walked people through how to do my style, collaging together photos and doing all this stuff, and it was hours of work. And you're telling me this guy, this program just did it in a couple of minutes?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm more just blown away by the iterations that it can make, and how it can progressively get better and better and smarter with every version that it makes.
Yeah.
But we'll see how it turns out. It's an interesting time.
Yeah.
I know a number of other oil painters are just sticking to what we do.
Yeah.
I have no interest in learning yet another program. I, I don't want to sound like I'm old or something like that. It's just I'm comfortable where I am.
Yeah.
I don't feel the need. Like I'm still kicking and screaming that I got to learn ZBrush and Blender.
Yeah, like
But
that's already too much.
that stuff feels like it makes my process more efficient. Where I don't have to think about perspective and lighting as much, even though I could do it just from gathering photo reference and drawing it, but it just feels it's much more accurate to have something like that, the 3D programs. But part of me also just likes to just pull out some clay and just sculpt something for real and have a physical object. So there's always going to be, no matter what the change in the industry is, there's always going to be people that bucket and say, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep doing my thing. And it's interesting because it comes back around when all of the oil painters of the 90s that were doing sci-fi fantasy art abandoned oils and went to doing their stuff digitally. they had no secondary market. They were just selling prints or whatever. And they didn't care because it was just about volume. Like, let me knock out as much of this as I possibly can. But then their fan base got jobs and they good paying jobs and wanted to, you get those emails. Hey, do you have the original of this?
Yeah.
I've got a lot of money to give you if so. And you go, oh, no, I can sell you a print.
Yeah.
Right. So they're realizing that now. And I've seen a lot of those people that abandoned oils in the 90s and early 2000s coming back around to oil painting again. And that's interesting. That's been fun to see. So wherever AI art goes, I feel like at some point it'll have its moment, and people will come back and be like, this is a pencil. If I do this with it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it'll seem even more magical that we can do what we do. And that's what made me think, like, I wonder if live painting, like for people who do work traditionally, will become a bigger thing if this is more widespread in the future, where it's like it becomes more of a magic act because you can do it without generating through a computer.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if somebody takes one of these images and finds a way to fine art the crap out of it,
Yeah.
Projecting it onto a canvas and doing some traditional painting based off of something that was created in an AI, and that have that be the whole. It could be a crappy painting, but have that be the whole pitch. Is this started out in the computer, and this is what I did with it, and kind of like the banana being taped to the wall, and somebody's like, I want, like,
again, a very specific audience. Like I would never.
Right, exactly. So you're telling me that the computer created it, and then you recreated what was created by the computer. Yeah. Money. like, somebody will do that. And I'm like, oh God, really? Yeah, after this episode is over, I'm going to do exactly what I just said and get this really large canvas and have to call it some weird avant-garde name to it. Oh God, it's like it's the past 20 years of art, this industry going from traditional to digital to everything, everybody wanting to do 3D animated everything. You remember when what was it, when Shrek won the Academy Award for Best Animated Picture? It was up against a bunch of 2D animated films.
Yeah.
And Disney basically shut down their 2D animation department and told everybody, you've got to learn Maya or quit or like find work out somewhere else.
Wow.
And that was basically it. Like, learn 3D or leave, because that's where we're going.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's every few years. It feels like every 5 years or so, there's a shift. There's something happens where now you got to know another thing and another thing.
Yeah.
But I think that for students that are dabbling in this, you still got to learn how to draw. You still got to understand how to compose an image.
Absolutely.
Because even when that computer gives you this really cool blob of surrealistic mess, you've still got to understand what to do with it to make it look cool, to make that sci-fi armor, to make that cool battle scene or whatever you want to do, that makes it your own.
Yeah.
So that you are thoroughly painting over that Getty photo and the watermark that is still left behind and making it your own, so that you don't get sued or however that eventually ends up working out.
Yeah.
But you have to understand what you're doing. You just can't rely on the computer to do it for you.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right analogy or not, but I kind of see it as like a studio that's trying to make a film that has a lot of money, but let's say they don't have a lot of people who know about art, and a studio that doesn't have a lot of money but has a lot of people who really know about design and storytelling and stuff. I'll bet you, I'll put my money on the on the studio with less money that they'll make a better film. You know, it's like you still have to know what you're doing with it to use the
Mhm.
resources, and that's how I see technology as well. It's like it's not something to be terrified of. It definitely, you know, makes it a non-level playing field for people who have access to it in some ways. It speeds up the process, it makes things cheaper to do, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, you still have to produce an image and you still have to connect with an audience, and that hasn't changed.
Now, if the AI programs start mimicking children's book art and doing cutesy stuff that doesn't look uh like a Wes Craven kind of
Like Mike Sinsky or something.
yeah, like horror fest, then we're in trouble. Because if it can do cutesy Pokemon type,
Oh.
Sonic fan art kind of style stuff and the Craig Mullins surrealistic stuff, then oh man, oh well. That'd be a bad, but like children's book, they're like different genres, like oh god.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's yeah, that's that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Don't freak out, you know, especially don't try to predict a future that we don't even know how it's going to end up. But I think just like with everything, it's good to just be aware, to have conversations and to be open to the change, but don't feel like you have to necessarily take it on if you don't want to either. I just think there's enough anxiety in the world, you know. It's just best to approach these things with as little anxiety as possible, if possible. So, but unless there's anything else you want to leave our viewers with, Eric.
Um, Focus on creating the kind of work that you love. Stay positive, stay focused on what you do and what you do best, and just keep cranking out art. That's basically it.
Yeah.
Do what makes you happy. Um, but these things come and go. Can't hurt to test it out and see if it's something you like or can add to your workflow.
Yeah.
Um, but don't rely on it 100%, or think that it's going to bail you out, or be the alternative to having to learn how to be an artist.
Yeah.
So well, yeah, that's it. That's what I got.
That's good. That's perfect. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this short episode, and we'll see you next time, and we'll have Lauren back in the next episode as well. But thanks so much for listening, guys.